Yes, so let's continue talking about the muscles of pharynx. So I told you that there are outer circular and inner longitudinal muscles. In your outer circular muscles come your constrictor muscles, superior, middle, and inferior constrictor muscles. And the inner longitudinal, you have the palatopharyngeal, palatopharyngeus muscle, salpingopharyngeus muscle, and stylopharyngeus muscle, right? So I was telling you about the constrictor muscles that in the three constrictor muscles they overlap each other in a manner that the middle constrictor, for example, if this is the middle constrictor, it will lie on the outside of the lower part of the superior constrictor. So this basically overlaps and lies on the outside of the lower part of the superior constrictor. Similarly, the inferior constrictor lies on the outside of the lower part of the middle constrictor. This way, the lower part of the middle constrictor is hidden by the inferior constrictor. Similarly, the lower part of the superior constrictor it's hidden by the middle constrictor. So that's the pattern that we're following. The lower part of the inferior constrictor, which arises from the cricoid cartilage. So this is the inferior constrictor, and where's the lower part of inferior constrictor? This you can see this cricopharyngeus muscle. So the lower part of inferior constrictor, which arises from cricoid cartilage, is called the cricopharyngeus muscle. Here also you can see it clearly that this is the cricopharyngeus muscle right here. This arises from the cricoid cartilage. This is the cricoid cartilage. And the fibers of cricopharyngeus pass horizontally around the lowest and narrowest part of the pharynx, and it acts as a sphincter. So this is basically the sphincter part of the inferior pharyngeal constrictor. And then the top part, which has the longitudinal fibers, that is known as, this is the word for it. Let me open the image. Yes, thyropharyngeus muscle. So this is basically the the inferior constrictor muscle. It has a top part, which is the propulsive part. This is the thyropharyngeus muscle. This is the part, right? The propulsive part of the inferior constrictor muscle. And the sphincter part of the inferior constrictor muscle is the cricopharyngeus muscle, which basically is attached to the, or you can say it's driven from the, its fibers are basically, you can say, um, its fibers arise from the cricoid cartilage. This part. Now, the Killian dehiscence is the area on the posterior pharyngeal wall between the upper propulsive part of the inferior constrictor and the lower sphincter part of the inferior constrictor. Upper propulsive part, the thyropharyngeus, and the lower um, sphincter part, which is the cricopharyngeus. So between that, there's this area. Uh, that area is known as the Killian dehiscence, right? So upper propulsive part and the lower constrictor part. Now here we are seeing this that let's read this together. Killian's dehiscence is a triangular area of muscular weakness in the posterior wall of pharynx located between the cricopharyngeus and thyropharyngeus muscles. It's named after the German otolaryngologist. Wait, it's named after this German otolaryngologist. This is so hard to pronounce. Otolaryngologist Gustav Killian. It's considered a locus minoris residentiae, which is a place of least resistance, and is the most common site for the formation of a Zenker's diverticulum, a posterior pharyngeal pouch. While the existence of true dehiscence, a gap is debated. A weakness in this region allows for an outpouching of the pharyngeal wall. So because of the weakness, there are high chances that there can be an outpouching of the pharyngeal wall. And this is now the pharyngeal diverticulum through the Killian's dehiscence. Continuing, let's talk about the pharyngeal muscles. Origin and insertion, right? So superior constrictor. This is the superior constrictor. It originates from first of all the medial pterygoid plate, then pterygoid humulus, pterygomandibular ligament. Pterygomandibular ligament is also known as the pterygomandibular raphe, right? Where is it? Uh, this is a pharyngeal raphe. Where's pterygomandibular raphe? Pterygomandibular raphe. Have they drawn it here? I cannot see it. Can you guys see it? Pterygomandibular raphe. I think I did see it earlier on. I don't know why I can't see it for now. Where is it? Okay, let's try to locate it here. This is the mandibular raphe. It's also known as the pterygomandibular ligament. So from here arises the supraconstrictor muscles. Yes, see, superior constrictor muscles. From here, and then the medial pterygoid plate somewhere here, and then then the medial pterygoid plate, then the pterygoid hamulus. Yep, see, this is the medial pterygoid plate. So from here, from the pterygomandibular raphe, and from the pterygoid hamulus, and then from the ligament, from the mylohyoid line of the mandible. So mylohyoid line of the mandible is here. So all of these things, they lie in one. Um, this is the pterygoid hamulus. So from what all things? It arises from the medial pterygoid plate, then pterygoid hamulus, then your pterygomandibular raphe, and then from the mylohyoid line of the mandible. So these are the four origin points of the superior constrictor muscle. So you can see. Then you have its insertion. It inserts into the pharyngeal tubercle, uh, and then this is the pharyngeal raphe. So it inserts, everything inserts into the pharyngeal raphe and the pharyngeal tubercle. Pharyngeal tubercle is basically this basilar part of the occipital bone. There's a tubercle, and to this tubercle is also attached the pharyngeal raphe. Now the middle constrictor, it originates from the lower part of the stylohyoid ligament and lesser and greater cornu of the hyoid bone. So this is the greater horn of the hyoid bone. So it basically originates from the lesser and greater cornu of the hyoid bone and the lower part of the stylohyoid ligament. And then this also inserts into the pharyngeal raphe. Then you have the inferior constrictor. It originates from the lamina of the thyroid cartilage and the cricoid cartilage. You cannot see it here. Let's try to figure it out here. So cricoid cartilage, lamina of the cricoid cartilage, and the lamina of the thyroid cartilage and the cricoid cartilage. From cricoid cartilage, we have the cricopharyngeus muscle, the cricopharyngeus part, which is the sphincter part, and then you had the other part, which is the thyropharyngeus. That's the propulsive part. It originates from the lamina of the thyroid cartilage, and this also inserts into the pharyngeal raphe. And then you have the okay, so cricopharyngeus, it originates from the lowest fibers of the inferior constrictor muscle. Cricopharyngeus originates from the lowest fiber of the inferior constrictor muscle. They're saying this in the book, but actually it's the part of the inferior constrictor muscle, right? Then stylopharyngeus muscle. Where is the stylopharyngeus muscle? This one, right here. That's stylopharyngeus. Then you have the salpingopharyngeus, this, and then you have the palatopharyngeus. So if you talk about the stylopharyngeus, um, this one, it originates from the styloid process of the temporal bone, and it inserts into the, if it keeps going downwards, it will insert into the posterior border of the um, thyroid cartilage. If you talk about the salpingopharyngeus muscle, this is the salpingopharyngeus. So it's going to originate from the auditory tube. This is the cartilaginous part of the pharyngotympanic or the auditory tube or the eustachian tube. So it originates from that. And where does it insert? It inserts by blending into the palatopharyngeus muscle. This is the palatopharyngeus muscle, like this, right? Now, palatopharyngeus muscle, it originates from the palatine aponeurosis and it inserts into the posterior border of the thyroid cartilage, similar to the stylopharyngeus. That also inserts into the posterior border of the thyroid cartilage. Similarly, palatopharyngeus also inserts into the posterior border of the thyroid cartilage, and salpingopharyngeus muscle, it inserts into, or it blends with the palatopharyngeus muscle. So basically, the insertion of all of these muscles is very simple. For the constrictor muscles, it's basically the pharyngeal raphe. For superior constrictor muscles, it's also the tubercle. So that's the insertion. We're done with the insertion of the constrictor muscles. For the rest of the three muscles, stylopharyngeus and palatopharyngeus and salpingopharyngeus, basically it's into the thyroid cartilage, right? Posterior border of the thyroid cartilage for stylo, and for the palato. Salpingo, it blends with the palato, so one and the same thing. And origin, I've already told you, for the constrictor muscles, it has a lot of origins. So it also it begins from the medial pterygoid plate, and then the pterygoid hamulus, then the pterygomandibular raphe, and then the mylohyoid line of the mandible. So this is the origin of the superior constrictor. Then you talk about the medial constrictor. So medial constrictor, it originates from the greater and lesser cornu of the hyoid bone and the lower part of the stylohyoid ligament. And if you talk about the inferior constrictor muscle, so it basically has two parts, right? One is the here thyropharyngeus part and the cricopharyngeus part. So cricopharyngeus part, it originates from the cricoid cartilage, right? And the thyropharyngeus part, it originates from the lamina of the thyroid cartilage. Fine, this is the thyroid cartilage, this is the cricoid cartilage.